I love talking about the weather in the beginning of my videos. I feel like it just kind of eases us in to the conversation rather than just jumping right in. I want to welcome you into my living room, into my little space, and just have a conversation. Today I am going to be reviewing Empire of Silence, which is the first book of the Sun Eater series. This is my first dive into sci-fi. I have been primarily a fantasy reader. I first heard of the Sun Eater series through Mike's book reviews, and after that I kept seeing it all over my feed. Just highly praised and talked about and hyped up. Then I kept hearing comparisons to Dune and Star Wars and Name of the Wind, which is my favorite book of all time. So this got me a little more excited. So I did a little more research, spoiler free of course, and I made the decision, this is a series I want to dive into. This series seems like right up my alley. It's got politics and royal houses and world building and deep history and, laser guns and shields and all that stuff. Spaceships. I never read the Dune books, so I have no room to compare the two. I've only watched the Dune films by Denis Villeneuve. I have read Name of the Wind, but I don't think this book should be compared to Name of the Wind. I think we should just read books for what they are, at face value, and appreciate them for what they are, rather than just constantly comparing them to other series. This stands on its own, okay? However, I do compare books to this foundational baseline, that I have set in my mind. What my tastes are, what I look for in a book, what I appreciate in a book, what I look for in a story. And what I look for in a book, especially as an adult now, is a slow-paced story. Natural and deliberate pace. When a story takes its time to progress and unfold. When characters are complex and grow and develop in a very organic and lifelike way. And sometimes I love that pace when it's just day to day, moment to moment, just sitting with that character in the most mundane circumstance. For example, Wheel of Time and Name of the Wind. And I think pacing is just a huge thing for me as a storyteller because I make films and I really pay attention to how a movie, a TV show, a book, a story is paced and how that story progresses. I just want to preface that everyone has their own tastes in books. We like and hate books for different reasons. I did not hate this book. I liked it. I just didn't love it like everyone else on booktube. So that being said, let's dive into the review. Sorry for the long-winded intro, but I just want to set expectations, and I want to be thorough in my thoughts and honest. One more thing. Yes, I know that this was Christopher Ruocchio's first book. He wrote it between ages 17 and 23, I think. Age really doesn't matter, but it's his first book. Yes, I know he took inspiration from Dune, okay? I get that. I also know that he did an outline in this book. So the story can be maybe all over the place with its pacing. And lastly, I know that everyone says Howling Dark is where it's at. That it all pays off. And it just gets better and better. All right, let's talk about the writing style. I feel like Christopher Ruocchio really does have a way with words. He understands the English language. He understands his history. And I appreciate that. There are some very beautiful and thought-provoking sentences, paragraphs, moments, and chapters that you just want to sit on and think about. However, because this is Hadrian's story and he is telling us this story in his own words, the language felt very cold and distant. And it also felt very one note, where if you had a piano in front of you and you just play that one key and hold it down, and it goes boom, and it just holds that all the way through. For me and my taste, I just didn't resonate with the language and how the story was told. And also, it felt like there was a lot of telling and less showing. And I get it. Hadrian is telling us his story, but I felt like it was hard to imagine and picture things. Mainly the environment and objects and the scenery. I don't know if that's because this is my first sci-fi book and it's just a little different from fantasy or what, but I, for the life of me, could not really picture certain rooms or this or that. I mean, I could picture the Colosso. I don't know what a ground car looks like. I don't know what a flyer looks like, you know? And maybe that's just different for every reader. Maybe we all have just a different imagination. You know, if I had a character walk in a tavern, I think we're all going to imagine a different tavern, you know? Let's talk about the pacing of this book. I know I talked about that in the beginning of what I look for and what I crave when it comes to pacing in a story. I wish this book was slower. I wish it took a little more time to develop certain aspects before moving on to the next thing. There are a lot of time jumps in this book, and I feel like the time jumps took away from the potential emotional impact of various events that take place. Like I said, I enjoy that almost mundane day-to-day pacing. And that's why I love Wheel of Time and Name of the Wind and other books like that. I wish Christopher Ruocchio just let maybe the first third of the book, maybe the first half of the book, be the first book. Just let's expand upon that first half a little more, a little longer. Let's sit in some moments. Let's create feeling and an emotional depth, because the writing style being so cold and distant to me, coinciding with the time jumps, it didn't allow me the sense of immersion that I look for and want in a book. Let's go to spoilers. Let's just start with the spoiler warning right now. The rest of this video, I will be spoiling various aspects and moments of this book because I want to provide some examples of what I'm talking about. So if you have not read this book yet, now's the time to click off. I'm sorry that I really couldn't provide a spoiler-free review for you. I feel like I let you down. Sorry. My biggest issue with Empire of Silence is things did not feel earned. Yes, I know we got to see Hadrian at his lowest. He lost Gibson, gets transported to another planet, dumped off on that planet, lives on the streets for 3 years, you know, trying to survive, trying to get by, meets a woman, Kat, falls in love, she dies in his arms, and then he easily makes his way to the Colosso. None of this felt earned. It felt rushed. There wasn't emotional weight to any of this. I felt like this book should have been a little longer, or at least taken a little more time to let me sit in these moments and build emotional connection to these characters. Because honestly, I didn't really feel or care for Hadrian or a lot of these other characters. I was immediately into this book. I felt like the first third was chef's kiss. And that's because we were being introduced to the noble life of Hadrian and the family dynamics and his relationship with Gibson and kind of the inner workings of this sci-fi world, and the technology and the philosophy and that relationship with his brother, Crispin. I started feeling hesitant and doubtful when the book sped up a bit and those time jumps happened. And it just takes away that emotional weight and care and investment. I so wanted to stay on the beach with Hadrian and Gibson, just listening to them talk and debate and teach and learn. That's the kind of relationship that should have been built up longer. That way, when things get bad and bad things start to happen, you'll feel it. You'll feel it right here because you care about the characters. You care and you understand the importance of that relationship. I also felt Hadrian didn't change at all. I felt like he was the same as he was in the beginning of the book to the very end of the book. And you'll probably argue, be like, hey, this is book one. Book one in a 7-book series. So you'd expect that. Wait till the character grows in the later books. Hadrian spent 3 years on the street. Yes, we saw him at his lowest, but I didn't feel him at his lowest. I didn't see him grow through it, or try to survive, or adapt. I didn't see the inner workings of what street life is like on this planet. I didn't even get a real natural progression or organic relationship development between him and Kat. He just fell in love and she died. What was it like to fall in love for the first time for Hadrian? This is a big milestone. And for someone to die in your arms for the first time, that relationship just felt rushed. She enters his life and then she leaves it. And yes, I get it. We're getting glimpses in the beginning of his life to where he is now, or where he, where his journey takes him. And what about the Colosso? Stepping foot for the first time in a Colosso. He spends his whole life running away from that. And for him to just approach of his own volition, where's the trepidation? Where's the fear? He just gets recruited like that? Easy? There wasn't that emotional tie to such a big milestone. Stepping foot in a Colosso when you've spent your whole life running away from that. I think it would have hit harder if Hadrian was imprisoned due to a crime he committed on the street as a lowly street urchin and gets his nose slit, maybe gets a tattoo on him. I don't know. But it would have been more impactful if he was forced and thrown in to the Colosso. Then he climbs the ranks of becoming a gladiator and making a name for himself. Although I know he didn't want to make a name for himself because he didn't want to call attention to himself, but I love the politics of the different planets and the galaxy. And I love the mystique and the allure of this Cielson and this unknown civilization, or this ancient race in the Umand, I think that's what they're called, and these visions that he had. I love that, and I'm excited about that. I am not hating on this book for the sake of hating it, and I don't hate it. I like it. I just felt like it didn't deliver. It wasn't executed the way I expected or the way I wanted. This isn't some sort of negative review for rage bait. I don't believe in that. What I believe in is we all have our own tastes and opinions. We're all not going to like the same books, and that's okay. But thankfully, I'm not giving up on this series. I know everyone says Howling Dark is where it's at. where this series kind of comes into form. And I'm excited about that. I will be taking a break from the series. Give myself permission to not read the entire series all the way through. I want to space it out and come back to it with vigor and excitement. I wanted to love this book so much. I wanted to love it like everyone else on booktube. I think maybe those expectations affected my potential enjoyment of this book. I didn't hate it, I just liked it. If you've read this book, and maybe you're a little further along in the series than me, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. This channel is not about me just shoving my opinion and having that be that. I want to talk to you, and I want to converse about why you love this book so much, or why you didn't like this book so much. And let's just talk about that. I know this video was maybe a little longer than my others, but I appreciate you sticking around and hearing me blab about Empire of Silence. Thank you for watching and hanging out with me. Till next time.